So guys, Paul, first of all, welcome. Welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's pretty cool to be here.
Yeah, and also welcome to all the people who are ex-WSO2 guys who are here joining us. It's really nice to see you here. And of course, welcome to the whole team. Thank you for coming to celebrate. Not the whole team, we only have the people in Sri Lanka. I think we'll record it and we'll make it available for other people to see. Although the politically correct, politically incorrect parts are that we might have to edit a bit. May not fit the protocols in other countries, but that's okay. So welcome here, and we thought we will do a small chat just to kind of reminisce the history a little bit and maybe just chat about some stuff in WSO2 that people may not be aware of. So Devaka is going to anchor the conversation. So let me introduce Devaka. I think everybody knows Devaka, but hello. Devaka joined in November of 2006.
Yeah.
So almost 19 years now. And he did have a little bit of hair when he joined, not down to my level, but yeah. So Devaka has been a key part of the company. He was our first sales guy and has been played basically every role in sales and business development and kind of getting the company going. And now leads our entire business operations as Chief Revenue Officer. So welcome, Devaka. And of course, he's based in Austin. And I think Paul, a lot of people probably haven't met Paul, so let me give a little more background about Paul. So Paul and I met each other in IBM. He was in IBM Software Group. He was working for IBM Hursley, which is part of IBM UK. And I was working for IBM Watson in New York. And I think Paul had been a consultant. He was in IBM Software Group, but then also did some work in IBM WebSphere Group, doing some consulting work, and was spending a summer at in Alberton, one of the IBM, what later got renamed as the Silicon Valley Lab in IBM, I think, and was working on what's called a red book on XML, and red book means it's a book. Then the red color comes from not from the place where usually red color comes from, but from IBM documentation used to be written with a red cover book for some reason. And he was working on a red book on XML, and he was using some stuff that I had written that from the group that I was in. And then he found some bug in it, and he reached out to me, and then I sent him a patch, and that's how we kind of got to know each other. I think this would have been 1998, sometime summer of 1998. And then we collaborated together on building various bits of software, including a project called, I moved back to Sri Lanka in 2001, and we got funding. Paul and I were the co-proposers of the project, for a project called Colombo Project. We called it Colombo Project because I moved back and I wanted to call it the Colombo Project, which was to rebuild the web services stack in a very low-level concept, but pull parser architecture was the driving force. And coming off that is how the Access 2 project got started. And then Paul was in IBM. I was still in IBM as well. We had a grant. Interestingly, LSF, Lanka Software Foundation. Devaka is here in the audience somewhere. Devaka and I are the ones who started the Lanka Software Foundation in 2003. And we were kind of trying to build software in Sri Lanka, open source software. LSF got a grant of $100,000 from the Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA. And we hired a team of people, 6 people, all of whom have since left WSO2 except for Srinath, who came back. All of them actually went and did PhDs in computer science, and a whole bunch of other people along with that. And we started the Access 2 project, and we had the funding to host 2 face-to-face meetings as part of it. And Paul came. I think Paul's ticket was paid by IBM because IBM was going to use Access 2. And we met in 2004 August. It was actually the World Trade Center on the 35th floor. There's a meeting room, and that's the one that we used for that discussion. It was a sort of a scoping the project discussion. And then we've also realized that, okay, you need a commercial model. People have to support it. That's when Paul mentioned we went to meet Chris Kanagaratna and the Vertusa team, and Keith was there and a bunch of people. And Vertusa was very small at the time, probably maybe $10-20 million business at the time. And we managed to, we were trying to convince them, saying, somebody needs to sell a support business. And that's when we were, and I think it was Paul who said on the way down from the lift, saying, why are we trying to tell everybody else to start a company? Why don't we start one ourselves? And we had no idea what it means to start a company. And then we started kind of trying to figure out what that means. And one of the first guys I spoke to is Jonathan, who was working for Microsoft at the time. And Jonathan was also on the XSLT working group and the WSTL. He was a chair in the WSTL working group. And then Jonathan is the one who said, okay, these are some of the steps you need to go through, because none of us had any idea like what we need to do. And he gave the draft of his founder agreement that he had used in his company. And we kind of tweaked some words and we signed it. And that's how we got started. And then we had a meeting on December 21st, 2004 at Paul's mom's apartment in Battersea, London. And it was Paul, myself, and another person who actually didn't end up co-founding. It's not Dim, somebody else. The three people who were going to start it. And we went there and we were going to, we had worked out all the we worked out like what's the business model and so on, and kind of tried to figure out like what does this company look like, how much are we getting paid now. We obviously knew we couldn't, pay ourselves because, we were fairly well-paid IBM employees, all three of us, like what we would adjust the salaries to and so on. And then then of course 5 days later was a tsunami in Sri Lanka, so everything got sidetracked because I was very busy with LSF. We built this Sahana disaster management platform in Sri Lanka. And then in, I think February 2005, we started getting back into it and started going around. And February 2005, I met James Clark, who became our first angel investor at a conference in Phuket. Thai government had organized an open source conference in Phuket because Phuket was one of the most hardest hit places in the tsunami. And like, I don't know, lots of people died, thousands or something like people died there. And they had organized a conference to bring people back to Phuket. And James was working for the Thai government at the time. He was the Thai government open source advisor. And and I got some award for Sahana at that time. So I went there for it, and then I met James, and we were sitting out in some hotel lobby, and I was pitching him WSO2, saying this idea of, this company. I wasn't called WSO2 at the time. But anyway, then he kind of said, sounds good, I'll invest. So we thought, Paul and I later thought, okay, invest means like $2 million. We thought we'll raise $5 million to start or something crazy like that. But Paul meant $2 million. Well, James spent $2 million, but turned out he didn't mean that. So anyway, we ended up talking to various people, finally managed to, so James invested $250,000, then Paul's father stepped up with I think $200K investment back then. Unfortunately, Paul's father passed away about 10 years ago now? Right?
Yeah, 12.
12 years ago, yeah. So the two of them anchored the round for us to get started, and then few other people put 50K each, and each of us had to put 25,000 each. Because James basically said, if you guys screw this up, I'm out $250,000, you guys will go get a job. Which is true, we would have got a job, right? So like, okay, you have to put whatever money you can. So we had to find money and say, okay, we had to put some amount of money. And that's how we started the company, with $625,000 of starting capital. Yeah. That was August of 2005. So actually, August 4th it's kind of a middle point. There were like multiple stages of starting a company. There was a company registration here in the US, the day the funding came, et cetera, et cetera. So it took a bunch of steps to get to finally them, but then we kind of picked the middle point as birthday.
And while all that good stuff was going on, I was just a lowly R&D engineer at Virtusa. And my mentor is actually here, Sami sir, who obviously joined WSO2 and head engineering, but he would all say, Devaka, you're good with this communication stuff, but this coding, you're pretty badass.
So Devaka, can I add some things to that story? So,
oh yeah, please. Yes.
So Sanjiv explained how the first time we got in communication was I found a bug in his software. So that wasn't maybe so good, but in those days in IBM, if you wanted to report a bug, there wasn't like Jira or GitHub issues. There was a mainframe app that you have to have a login for, and no one knew how to use it except QA engineers. It was a nightmare. Anyway, so I emailed Sanjiva, and then we talked on the phone, and he had a fix for me the next day. That was just unheard of. So that was a kind of key moment for me. This guy is like serious about stuff. He talked about us going up the elevator to Chris Karatna and Virtusa. It was not a good meeting. It was like one of those very polite meetings where you could tell that the answer was no from the moment we walked in, and it just got worse as we carried on. It was like, no, no, no. So it was not a good meeting. So we were kind of like, why are we talking to these people who don't get this? Why don't we do it ourselves? And that was, and it really was a key moment, because I was like keen, and then Sanjiva was like, yeah, let's do it. And, you know, neither of us had set up a business before. So we spent about 5 months. I guess it wasn't quite that, because of you were busy with Sahana,
yeah.
but we spent about 3 months raising the angel funding. And we had so many calls with so many random people that people introduced us to. There was no like angel networks in those days. And I remember one time one of the potential investors said, send us a term sheet. Now, I had no idea what a term sheet was. Sanjiva had no idea what a term sheet was. We're on Yahoo IM, chatting to each other behind the scenes while we're on this conference call. And Sanjiva's like, what's a term sheet? And I'm Googling it. Oh, I found one. Yeah, we'll send you a term sheet. So we cut and paste this term sheet we found on the internet and edited it a bit, figured out what all these weird clauses were about, and, you know, early redemption clauses and all this kind of stuff we had no clue about. And we sent it off to this guy. He didn't invest, but this became our term sheet. The only problem was I copied one that said Series A. That seemed logical to me, right? We're A, right? No, this was an angel round. This is pre-A. But it somehow ended up as Series A. And then when we wanted to do our next round, the lawyers are like, but this is Series A. You've done Series A. But like, no, we didn't do Series A. We did an angel round. But it says Series A. So we had to pay the lawyers like $5,000 to rename the term sheet and redo everything. So that was our angel round and this was Series A, because the investors were confused. So that's what happens if you Google. But on the other hand, we got a term sheet, we got the money, so there we go.
Now of course, we'll get ChatGPT to generate one for you.
Sorry?
Now we'll use ChatGPT to generate a term sheet and make all kinds of stuff that you don't know. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, what I was trying to say was like, ever since day one, we've done things so differently. I mean, I was the first sales chap to join the company, but I had zero experience in sales. I had no experience in sales. So, my first task was to draft a contract, and Devaka was my boss, and I used to be scared going into his room, having a chat with Devaka. Where is he? Somewhere here. First task was to draw up a contract. I did the same thing. I Googled, found templates, started copying, pasting, putting clauses in. Pretty sure it's illegal to do that way, but that's what I did. And I showed it to him, and he said, yeah, this is no good. I was at it for like an entire day. He's like, yeah, this is crap. But my point is...
He hasn't changed, by the way.
Oh, he hasn't?
I was just chatting to... If any of you know, I now make musical instruments, just me, from scratch. And I said this to Devaka, and he says, what's your branding strategy? Do you have employees? What's your team size? Do you have a company? Relax, Devaka, relax. It's just me. So I can imagine what he was like to you.
So when he says musical instruments, by the way, he makes violins, not something small. Like from scratch, from every piece of it. Paul makes violins now. So.
But I don't have a branding strategy, I'm sorry.
But the fact that we did things so different, and even to this day, I mean, most people can't believe that we did things that way. And it's because of the way the company was set up and so on. So Sanjiv, if you could just talk about the early days of having to raise money, being in Sri Lanka. I know you told this story so many times, but taking so many red-eye flights and, explaining the entire model when they haven't invested in this part of the world at that point, I think, right? No one was interested in doing that.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand this whole thing of doing things differently. So first thing was, Paul and I both came from, and Dims, we all came from an open source background. So the first question is how do you, we always had lofty goals. We never had any kind of like, oh, we just want to make some money, get 10 customers, sell it in India or Sri Lanka or UK and we're done. It was never that. It was always like, okay, we're going to become the #1 middleware company. That was our goal, right? So that's the first thing. If you want to start a company, you should have aspirational goals. It's kind of boring otherwise. You're just going to do something which is like tweaking. So we always had completely crazy goals, and we still do. Right? It's to be the leading company in the world. And then, so we're doing things differently meant, okay, so 2005, open source was very much the rebel. There was still the era when Microsoft was going around saying open source is evil. And, it's anti-capitalist, all kinds of stuff. Now, of course, Microsoft is the largest contributor to open source in the world. So in that era, so that was our starting point of doing things differently. Then our thing was, we are taking on large-scale enterprise companies, and our goal was to produce software that was orders of magnitude less complicated, less painful, faster to use. One of the comments we had was from that the guy at Merrill Lynch was, by the time I finished downloading the IBM ESB, they had downloaded the WSO2 ESB, installed it, tried a few samples before the other download finished. Right? So that's an order of magnitude difference we're trying to hit on, right? To say things are so much better. It's not just incrementally better, because if incrementally better, even if you give the damn thing away free, you can't break in. It's not enough differentiation. So our goal was always do everything differently. So when it came to funding, the tech companies generally are made in California, right? That's the way it works. The leadership of the company is in California. Here, I was in Sri Lanka, Paul is in UK, Dims was in Boston, and to be honest, I lived in the US for 16 years. I had gone to California once. I went to give a talk on something called Bean Markup Language, which is like a precursor to Spring that I had done in IBM research. I went to Java user group in California to give a talk on that, and flew in the morning, gave the talk, and flew back that evening, and I was back in New York, right? So it's my only time I had been to California for 16 years. And then after starting WSO2, I think I have been, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 times to California now, right? At least, right? And during the funding stuff, so you go there, and so how do you get started in raising money? You talk to somebody, they introduce somebody. So the thing with investors is, of course, they're always looking for something that's worth investing into, because people have money, they're trying to figure out how to make it work better. So they're always open to conversations with something that seems like there's potential. So you can get a meeting typically with someone, right? So then you go there, and then they start talking. Then so you tell them, well, we do this thing called middleware. Now, remember 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was all about apps and social media and nothing. No enterprise tech. Enterprise was very, very boring stuff. Now enterprise tech is kind of hot, pre-AWS, pre any of these things, right? So enterprise tech meant kind of like, oh, whatever. So and then so we're saying we're doing some boring stuff. We're going to give it all away free. And oh, by the way, we live on the other side of the world, right? I live in the other side of the world. CEO in their mindset had to be in California. So I was always like, when are you moving? Where is that? What are you trying to do? Sort of, it was always a challenge. But when you do something, you need luck in life always. The first break we got was Pradeep Tagare, the guy who invested from Intel Capital. I was introduced to him through somebody at the Open Source Initiative board that I had met. And I was on the OSI board because I had done LSF, I had done all this open source stuff. That's how I got into the OSI board. So I can, that Steve Jobs quote, I can connect the dots looking back, but when I did those things, you don't know how it's going to go, right? So looking back, I can say how I got introduced to Pradeep. But Pradeep turned out was one of the main, was an investor from Intel Capital, which is a corporate VC, and he was looking for a company from this side of the world to invest in, an enterprise tech company. He was an Indian origin person. He couldn't find something out of India. So he was looking for something in this side of the world. And when he found us, he was like, yeah, I'm investing in these guys. I don't care what they do, I'm going to invest in them, right? And he told me later, much later, that I met him for lunch at some restaurant in Palo Alto for the first meeting. He said in the first 5 minutes, he had decided, okay, I'm investing in these guys, right? The rest is all details. I mean, we didn't know. We were sweating it out, we kind of barely made the money on time before we ran out of money. And you always also, when you're talking to investors, you're pretending, oh yeah, there's a lot of demand. I have this investor, that investor. Every single time, except the EQT round, we had only one actual investor open, right? It was never a like competitive situation. We always wanted it to be competitive, right? You know, these crazy valuations you see in the OpenAI stuff and so on is all because of competitive investors. Multiple people want to, you know, finite resource, everybody wants a piece of it, price goes up. We were, you know, it was always scrappy and it was never easy because we were different. And different is not normal, and normal is what you invest in.
So I wanted to just tell you a story about us being different. So one of our very first serious production customers was eBay. And eBay have well, they used to, I don't know if they still do, but they used to have a production freeze from October till the end of December. So basically, no changes go into their production systems over the Christmas period because it's their busiest time of year. Oh, nice.
Sorry. I tried to cover it.
And anyway, so I'd been visiting a customer in the city of London, and I got a phone call, and it was like September 25th. And we were they were going to put us in a test production against IBM. They were going to put 1% of their traffic through us, 1% through IBM, and 98% through their existing systems over the Christmas period and see how we did. And I was walking out of seeing some bank in the city of London, and I get a phone call, and there's a bug. Our system is not working in the QA for the test production. So we set up a war room. That's what we used to do, what we still do if there's a customer problem. We set up a war room. So we set up a war room. I'm sure Samsa remembers this and various people who were in the room. And we figured out it was a bug in their system. Their router had a misconfiguration. And we managed to figure that out, fix the misconfiguration on their router, get into production with about 1 day to spare. And our system ran completely, but memory stable, no reboots, no nothing for 3 months. Handled the traffic like 5 times faster than their existing system, much, much better than the IBM system. And January 1st, they're like, right, we're putting in production. And within about a month, they had millions of requests a day. And within a year, they had billions of requests going through it. So I think that kind of highlights the difference that we wanted to build something that was radically different, but it wasn't just about the tech, it was about the model, it was about open source, it was about the people, it was about everything that's different. And it really made a difference to fixing that bug, finding out their problem, understanding what it was, resolving it, getting into production. At every stage, our difference helped us win that customer.
Yeah, I mean,
By the way, sorry, one quick comment. So eBay is not a big deal right now. At the time, eBay was a top 5 website in the world.
Yeah.
So we were handling all the traffic for one of the main websites in the world.
They got a sweet deal, but in return, we got the brand. And we used that brand. And that was
And
funny.
they were a customer for 10 years.
Yeah, for 10 years. We didn't expect them to hang around for that long. I mean, there were days when, we spoke to Walmart back in the day, and they literally said, you guys are too small. You can't handle our load, right? Traffic. I mean, imagine having that conversation now. So we really have come around in that sense.
We actually won a deal with T-Mobile in Germany because they were like, we're talking to Oracle, and Oracle wanted to charge them like 20 times as much as us, like 20 million. And they're like, they say they're the only ones who can deal with the load. We looked at the load and we said, well, that's about 100th what eBay is doing on a daily basis. So, and it's in production. It's been in production for 5 years. And they're like, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a refreshing feeling to know that you don't have to explain why Sri Lanka is on the map every time you talk to a prospect. I mean, there was one guy that I spoke to. He was a CTO in a company in New Zealand. He said, you guys are in Sri Lanka, why are you charging me these rates? You should be charging me, your rates should be cheaper than Indian rates, right? He was literally like that. I'm not going to pay this. You're in Sri Lanka. You're over there. So, those are the struggles we had. Again, going back to the point of saying doing things differently. Because we could have easily switched flipped the switch and said, okay, fine, let's go set up shop in the US and get this off the ground. especially these days when we talk about hiring and when we interview people, one thing that I hear, like every single time, every single candidate that I've spoken to, it's the culture, you know. They're just, right now, companies that are large in size, that are, you know, probably have gazillion valuations in place and so on, have such toxic culture. And for us to sort of be able to stick to those principles and still keep it to the spirit that the company has always been since day one, that we were a team, we always worked as a team. Team came first, you know. You help each other out. Even sales, early days, it was like, you know, this is pre-Salesforce. We want Sugar CRM, the free version of Sugar CRM, because we couldn't afford to pay for the license. It's about, you know, how can one team help the other team that's coming in under. So having been able to stick to that way of doing things and sort of overcome all those challenges, it's just stunning, you know. You don't hear these kinds of stories.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the team here now,
yeah.
You know. The people I've just bumped into who I haven't seen in years were instrumental in setting up this company. The people who are still here after all the years, it's not just Devaka who's done long service. There's, you know, plenty of people here who've done 10 years, plenty of people here who've done 15 years. It's pretty amazing. So firstly, I'd like to say, give yourselves all a big round of applause. Come on. I feel like a bit of a fraud sitting up here because I actually haven't been an employee for 5 years. So I did my 15 years and then I ducked out. And you guys are, so it's, you know, quite a few of you have beaten me for long service here. But, you know, one of the things Sanjiva taught us very early on is that, you know, you have to build a personal brand. You have to develop your own career. This isn't just about WSO2, this is also about your own development. And I think that's been amazing. The development of people I've seen here in this audience and people who can't be here, who've gone on to not just do amazing things here, but do amazing things at companies around the world, to get PhDs, to be leaders in tech, and hopefully to take some of the messages and some of the lessons that we've learned from WSO2 around the world. It's been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I think the team concept is important to understand, because it's one of the major differentiating factors for us in how we compete and also why we are able to win against other people. So in most companies, you have departments saying, I have this department, that department, and people focus on building their own little empires within those departments. It's the political structure of organizations, right? And we have avoided that from the beginning. First of all, we said we don't have departments, we have different teams, and we don't have responsibility that is so well marked out that it's very, very clear what I'm supposed to do and very, very clear what Devaka is supposed to do and very, very clear what Paul is supposed to do. The problem with that is when something new comes up that was not pre-mapped, it kind of falls in between, right? Second, you don't work to support each other because it's not my problem, it's his problem. So one of our ways of doing things was always trying to create this culture of saying, look, in the end, when you have a company, yes, we are here to build some technology, we are here to, it's a job, people run events of this, various kinds, we do all these different things. But in the end, if you have a technology company and you have people using it and they're not happy and they're not productive, that's the goal. You're building some software, you want somebody to use the damn thing and have some good time with it. So the entire company's focus has to be on that problem, not on, okay, I report to this person, I'm in that part of the company. So another one of the things that I've always said is, don't tell me ever, I work for Devaka, or I work for Padmika, or I work for somebody. You don't work for anybody, you work for WSO2, right? You are currently reporting to Devaka or Padmika or somebody else. This is perfectly fine. But we work in one company, we're not in some part that is separate. And that being able to bring people together to solve problems, I have had people ask me, how is it that a small company like WSO2 can build an entire programming language? right? So the computer science challenges of building a programming language are very, very vast. They go from compiler technology to networking technology to memory management to all kinds of stuff that you don't typically get together. And on top of that, we wanted to put all the middleware knowledge into that, right? So you need to understand long-running execution, you need to understand queuing, you need to understand services, clients, concurrency, all kinds of stuff. And we can do that because and security, we can do that because we have the breadth of knowledge in the company that touches every part of the technology stack, and we can work together as a team. That is the power. IBM obviously has a breadth of knowledge, Microsoft has a breadth of knowledge, Oracle, Google, all these companies have breadth of knowledge. I have been in IBM, I was there for 8 years, Rania was there for 20 plus years, I think Frank was there for probably longer, Paul was there for 10 years, I think. You get into a room, everybody's protecting their little corner. You're either protecting your team, you're protecting your lab, you're protecting your product, you're protecting your own personal growth, and nobody's actually saying, okay, let's put everything on the table, let's figure out how the right way to solve this problem is. Because that's what companies become over time, very large organizations, right? And even small organizations. At our size, we're nearly 800 people now. At our size, being able to operate as one team is extremely rare. Typically, people are already very, very demarcated and saying, hey, my world, your world, stay out of my world, right? So that's why I like matrix structured operation, because there's no one world then, there's at least two. In our case, we have like 3-4 overlapping matrices that structure the company. Very confusing for somebody who comes in, it's like, where's the reporting hierarchy? Well, you got this reporting hierarchy, that one, this one, take your choice, wherever you want, right? And then I remember when Rania joined, Rania was like, okay, how do I get things done? Like, well, send a message, send a mail, right? So, like, what do you mean? That's kind of, so people will pick it up. That's the idea. If there's something that needs to be done, the whole point is freedom and responsibility. Everybody has the freedom to operate, but also has a responsibility, a collective responsibility. In the end, if you don't deliver value to customers, we will not survive, right? And we don't deserve to survive in that case. For us to deserve to survive, for us to have the right to win, we need to earn the right to win. Earning the right to win starts with us. We work together as a team and then deliver stuff that people want to use first and pay. In the end, if you don't get paid also, we can't afford to pay for this stuff.
So I have a great story about that, which is that we had all these, I don't know, do you still have lots of mailing lists?
Sorry?
Do you still have lots of mailing lists?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we had a discussion on a mailing list about our licensing. And we're all like happy to go ahead. Jonathan's about to go. And then one of the engineers who's done, no business, no whatever.
Amila Surya.
Amila is like, isn't there a problem with your license? Shouldn't it be different for the patches than for the main product? And we're all like, mind blown. We were all, oh my God, he's right. We completely got the licensing wrong. And one of the engineers was just on the mailing list and thought about what we were saying and realized there was a logical flaw in it and pointed the error out to us and we fixed it. And it wasn't his job, it wasn't his role, he just was on the mailing list and he's like, hey guys, I think you made a mistake here. And we were like, oh yeah.
That's the value of transparency, right? So if you open communication, you give people who have a good idea to bring it up. In a typical company, an engineer will never think about the business model of the company. They'll never think about licensing. This was the birth of the WSO2 EULA. Right? End user license agreement for patches came out of that conversation. Yeah. Before that, we were saying everything is Apache license, including patches, which gave us no legal leverage. Right? Now, of course, we've refined it over the years, but that's how it all started. So, from a random idea, from a random place. Right? So,
well, do we have more time, or?
So maybe we should talk about future stuff a little bit, right? So first of all, it's kind of poetic justice in some sense. The people of Sweden are the ones who gave us $100,000 to start LSF, the Access 2 project in LSF. Yeah. Access 2 project is the root of WSO2, right? And if not for that project, WSO2 wouldn't have got started, at least in this form. Maybe something else, but not in this form. And then EQT is a Swedish private equity firm. And a lot of their money comes from Swedish pension funds. So money from the people of Sweden. So they own a big chunk of most of the company now. But also they're a private equity firm. Their goal is not to own the company forever. Their goal is to help develop the company value and then move on to something else. So when we look at, I think if you at our Asia conference or if you listen to the talk I gave, I was talking about long term because we come to 20 years, but as a company, when we started the company right from the beginning, we never had any intention of just saying, okay, we just want to fill a gap, sell it to somebody and move on. If you want to fill a gap, you don't build 10, 15, 25 products. Yeah. Right? In our peak, we had 25 different units we were distributing as products. And now we've kind of consolidated to a smaller number. So those of you who are complaining, saying too many products, too many names, just go to archive.org and look at the website and get happy because it's not. So we were never designed for that. We always designed saying we want to build a platform company. That was the interesting part. And the opportunity, in fact, that was the thesis for LSF. The thesis for LSF was that the people who have control over the platform have opportunity to influence the direction of the platform. And the platform that was evolving into the early 2000s was around open source, around web services, around interoperability. And that's what WS Star platform, SOAP, all that stuff and open source were about, and that's why we were able to have an opportunity to build on it. Now, of course, there's a new platform evolving around AI and a whole bunch of new things, right? And SaaS has kind of replaced some aspects of open source. But so going forward, we are a company that has always evolved, and if you're going to survive for a long time, you can't ever keep doing the same thing. We don't touch Access 2 anymore, right? And we still ship it here and there in some parts, but it's no longer something we talk about, think about, work at anymore. It's all finished, right? We work on a completely different technology stack. If you look at Choreo, it's all written in Go. Open Choreo is written in Go, not in Java anymore, right? We're moving on from Java. So a lot of things have evolved, and over the next 5, 10, 20 years, we'll have to keep on evolving. And that evolution, like a biological entity, evolution comes from inside. It's the cells in the body that are the ones that evolve and keep changing, and the environment, new people come in, the body evolves because something else comes in and annoys the hell out of that thing. Then it evolves to survive that, right? And get better. So I think that is the key thing for us as we go forward. The company in another 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, if it is to survive, it will be because all of us collectively, all of you collectively, more than the more senior ones of us, will evolve the company. And that's a critical part of how we want to build the company forward. So, and I think some of you know about the cell architecture concept that you've heard Asanka talk about. Paul and Asanka are the ones who came up with that, I think in 2017 or 18 maybe, in the first publication of it, and it's evolved over the years. And cell architecture is now at the heart of Choreo. It's the thing that defines how Choreo runs in many ways, and we're using it in various other places. So these concepts, actually cell architecture also, I shouldn't explain, Paul, came from biological concepts, right? So maybe you can
it's
talk.
My daughter's fault. She was doing cell biology at college, and I tried to dissuade her from doing biology. I'm like, biology is too complex. You just do physics. You don't have to memorize anything for physics. You just need to know 5 things and work it all out from there. And she's like, no. And then I realized that biology is actually a much better analogy than physics. You have 1,000 people here working on a big, complex organization with hundreds and thousands of partnerships with customers. Those customers have complex systems. They don't even know what their own systems are. So biology is an amazing analogy for complexity. And it's a much better science to think about when you're dealing with real life. Physics is too simple. You simplify everything into black and white and it doesn't work. So that's really, I kind of got to love biology, having hated it, and realized that actually it's a much better analogy for computer systems and organizations and the interaction between software and people and companies than the other sciences.
Yeah, so I think I also like the analogy of biology for organizations, right? Because an organization is we are biological entities. An organization is nothing but its people, right? There's nothing sacred about a company. Everything is defined by people. Whether it's how you do something or why you do it or what you do. is all coming from the individual. So I think, when you look forward, the ability to evolve and the ability to be open to change, and the right kind of change. You don't change for the sake of change. You change when there's the right information, right intuition, right judgment. When you change it, even in biology, same thing, right? The body knocks out a whole bunch of stuff. There's the white blood cells that come and knock out all the bad guys and keeps the system running the way it is. And then there are other parts that reprogram itself to evolve, which is also both functions are needed in order to let this thing go correctly. You can't keep knocking new things out, but you must also not take every new thing in. Kind of put the right stuff together and build a system that can keep evolving, so that hopefully, as a tech company, as I said in my keynote, not many companies last even 20 years. Very few companies last 60 years. Only like 8% of the companies have lasted anywhere near that, of the major companies that were started, not the smaller ones. So to last a long time is a statement about evolution, about creativity, about innovation, about going beyond individuals, going into a system that continues to work and create interesting value. And IBM is the best example. Two of us both came from IBM. IBM's lasted, I think it's the only tech company that's lasted more than 100 years, right? And nothing else has lasted that long. And now we have a few more which are in the 50, 60 year range, but they're about half the age of IBM. So,
can I just say one thing? When we talk about being adaptable and thinking long term and whatnot, one sort of an outcome of a great company is to be a sought after company. I told some of you this story. So I have a 5-month-old, so I sometimes do the night shift. So I have the baby on me, and then to stay awake, I'll be playing games online. So how many of you play cricket on PlayStation? Cricket 24. A show of hands, anybody? On PlayStation? I have one. Pratik? Okay, anyway. So this was probably 2, 3 in the morning, and I play online. I play with somebody else. And I always mute the line because, they'll try and sledge you, talk filth and whatnot. I'm holding a baby. I don't want any of that stuff, especially at 2 in the morning. So I was, starting a new game, and the person on the other end picked Sri Lanka as the team. Now, this never happens. Usually, it's a custom team. They have, Sanath Murali and some of those players in it, but this was a through and through Sri Lankan team this guy picked. I'm like, okay, that's unique. So we were playing the game. He was kicking my butt, and I unmuted the microphone. And I said, hey, are you from Sri Lanka? He said, yes. I said, okay, which part? Oh, I'm from Gampa, right? So, okay, we were playing. And then they said, okay, what do you do? Are you working? Are you studying? Oh, no, I'm studying at IIT. I'm like, IIT, okay. So what are your plans? Oh, I want to join WSO2. Like, what are the chances, right? Halfway around the world, I'm playing a game, and I'm talking to a guy who is aspiring to join WSO2. I think that's so powerful. And I think we all have an equal responsibility to make the company that, especially when you talk about, we are 20 years, 30, 40, 50 years. Now you're talking so many generations of people who sort of want to be part of this journey. And I think we all have a responsibility in making the company that, to be a sought after company. It's not just the leadership, but every single one of us. And, obviously you can be a, small piece of a large machine, or you could be something substantial in a smaller machine. And, we were talking about impact at the conference. I think, impact, we are not talking enough about impact, what kind of impact that we make at country levels, organization level, as well as at a personal level. And that's, to me, that drives purpose. People ask me, why are you still with this company? Salespeople don't hang around for 20 plus years, but I had a higher purpose being with WSO2. And we all need to find that. And I think WSO2, at least to me, has given that opportunity, and hopefully for most of us here as well. So thank you.
And I'm going to add one more thing to what Devaka just said, which is not only is we want to make WSO2 a sought after place, but also, and Paul referred to this study about personal brand, about the importance of building personal brand, because it should also be the reverse direction, where all of us are sought after by other people, and you choose to stay, right? And because if somebody in WSO2 is not sought after by somebody else, that's not a good thing for the company. That means we have a bunch of people that nobody else wants to hire. It should be always the other way around. It should always be that people in WSO2 are people that everybody else wants to hire, but they choose to stay, right? And then you get that by, first of all, obviously being in a company that is doing well. Somebody who works for Amazon or OpenAI right now, if you're an AI person working for OpenAI, give a call to Facebook, right? and you're highly sought after. But that's just the company brand. But then there's the individual. So it is very, very important that you focus on as part of personal development, because if you look at your own life's journey, all of us have, I don't know, somewhere between, in modern era, 80 to 100 years of life, right? And nobody knows where your life will go. And you have, but it's still long. It's not short typically. Of course, some people are not that lucky, but generally it's a fairly long run. And when you look at that journey, it's not about one, it's about the personal journey of your life. And these days, working in a company for a very long time is very rare. And at the same time, when you work somewhere, you should focus on building, however long you work, it's also about building personal growth, personal satisfaction. And if that is there, then you stay. And if that is there, it'll help you develop yourself. If you develop yourself, other people will want you. And then when you choose to say, then you are more confident that I'm doing the thing that I want to do. It drives purpose. You want to get up in the morning, right? I mean, Devaka told me something a long time ago, it must have been 15 years ago, that from amongst his friends, he was the only one on Sunday night who doesn't dread going to work on Monday, right? That's the feeling that you want to have if you have a place, because then work is not just a chore, but something that gives you drive. Steve Jobs' line, I've quoted this many times, that you spend 80% of your awake time in this place called work. So if you're doing something that's not motivating you, why are you doing it? Because you're losing your whole time on doing something that is not wanting you to get up in the morning to go fight it, right? And it should be a fight. It's kind of boring if it's like, get up or whatever, right? If you've ever been in meetings with me, I make sure I give you a fight.
So you just said that only 8% of companies make it past 6 years. I honestly didn't, I'm going to confess this to you now. I didn't think we'd make it past 2 years. I didn't really think we'd make it past 1 year. I had no faith that WSO2 was going to do anything. So imagine how proud I am to see all these amazing people out here today. It's mind-blowing. So firstly, thank you all for all your hard work and everything. And, it may seem like harking back to all these things, that the opportunities were greater then, but I think the opportunities are greater now. We live in an amazing time of change in the IT industry, and WSO2 has the clout, the money, the backing, and the people to do more incredible things now than we've ever done before. So take that opportunity and let's do it.
I couldn't agree more, Paul. I think the future is much more, we are standing on an amazing platform, amazing foundation. We crossed $100 million, almost, apparently 1 in 10,000 companies crosses $100 million. Right? That was in the BG2 podcast that they talked about it. So very, very few companies get that size. And we've crossed that, and there's nothing that says we can't cross $1 billion in revenue. We have the foundation, the framework, the architecture, the structure to get there. So a lot of room in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
With that, we'll wrap up. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's give them one more round of applause. Fantastic.